ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world. We are live on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. The Nigeria Labour Congress NLC suspends nationwide protest against the 50% hike in telecommunication tariffs. Liberian authorities arrest Kenyan national with heroin worth nearly $400,000. Regional policy analysts express worry over the imminent shutdown of U.S. aid by American President Donald Trump.
Africans have got to understand once for all the development of Africa can only be achieved by Africans.
Senegal's Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko launches phase 2 of drinking water supply project for rural populations.
The proposed project aligns perfectly with the established framework that prioritizes equity as a fundamental principle, contributing significantly to the achievement of sustainable development goals.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Many thanks to our listeners in Ghana, the Gambia, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and beyond. Newslink begins in Nigeria, where organized labor has called off its planned protest against the 50% hike in telecommunication announced by the federal government weeks ago. The Nigerian Labour Congress NLC suspended the demonstration on Monday after its executive members met with a government representative headed by George Akume, Secretary of the Government of the Federation. Our Abuja correspondent Usman Umar reports.
In a statement by the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, the meeting was aimed at maintaining industrial harmony while also protecting the interests of Nigerians. The statement noted that the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, who spoke on behalf of the federal government, emphasized the importance of the engagement. He explained that the discussion was centered on the study conducted by the Nigeria Communications Commission, NCC, which led to the proposed 50% increment in telecommunications tariff. A key concern raised during the meeting was the impact of the tariff hike on businesses, particularly small and medium enterprises, SMEs, that rely heavily on telecommunication services for daily operations. Industry experts warn that increased call and data costs could lead to higher operational expenses, reducing profitability and potentially forcing some businesses to downsize or shut down. E-commerce platforms, fintech companies, and digital service providers are expected to be among the hardest hit as they depend on affordable internet access to serve their customers. Additionally, higher telecom costs could lead to inflationary pressures as businesses may pass on the extra cost to consumers. This could affect sectors such as banking, retail, and logistics, which depend on seamless digital communication. According to data from the NCC, Nigeria's telecom sector contributes approximately 14% to the country's GDP, and any disruption could have far-reaching consequences for economic growth and job creation. After extensive deliberation, both parties agreed to establish a 10-member committee comprising 5 representatives from the federal government and 5 from the Nigeria Labour Congress NLC to review the NCC's study and submit a report within 2 weeks. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Still in Nigeria, the police force says it has recovered 115 stolen vehicles and rescued 387 kidnapped victims nationwide in the month. Sharing these details during a press conference in Abuja on Monday, the Force Public Relations Officer ACP Oluwumiya Adeboji said the success were recorded as a result of several nationwide operations in January. He added that 960 suspects were also arrested by operatives of the Intelligence Response Team, IRT, in the month under review, with 244 of the suspects arrested over armed robbery, 170 170 for kidnapping, 240 for murder or homicide, 53 for unlawful possession of prohibited firearms, and 130 for rapes and 123 for cultism. Nigeria continues to experience different categories of crime and unimagined security challenges such as terrorism, insurgencies, and the proliferation of armed and ammunition, transnational organized crimes, drug trafficking, kidnapping, armed robberies, and cyber crimes. To other developments, African countries remain one of the biggest beneficiaries of the support that the US aid has been providing since its inception in November 1961, with an aim to primarily administer civilian foreign aid and development assistance. That support to the development is on the cusp of being shattered with the announcement of Donald Trump's administration that the organization is to be shut down. What kind of impact can such a major move like this have on the nearly 1.4 billion population of African continent? Let's get some analysis from policy analyst Professor Gogui Deng as he speaks on the imminent closure of US aid and its impact on the continent.
Well, I mean, no surprise. This is really in accordance with his campaign and premises. He's simply implementing what he promised during his campaign. So there is no surprise. Maybe the problem is that the decision or the influence has come from somebody from Africa, Elon Musk being from South Africa. But in any case, he's no longer concerned about what is going on in Africa. So this is something we can consider to be at the same time negative and positive. It is negative because USAID programs are present in almost the countries in Africa. You cannot really cite a country in Africa where the US aid programs are present because this is part of the American international policy. Maybe this is something Trump doesn't take into account. He believes that he's simply helping. He's simply giving away American money to other countries. But this money also plays a diplomatic role because being present in Senegal, being present in Guinea, being present in other countries in Africa helps also America be more respected and be more present. And I don't believe that Trump is in a position to understand all this because it's not about the economy only, but it's about diplomacy. It's about politics. But it is positive because I believe that Africans have got to understand once for all the development of Africa can only be achieved by Africans.
And that was policy analyst Professor Gogui Deng speaking on the impact of the imminent shutdown of US aid on Africa.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
To some crime-related matters in Liberia, there has been a drug bust at the Robert International Airport, where the Liberia Drug Enforcement Authority says they have apprehended a 37-year-old Kenyan national, Lina Oredo, who was found in possession of 8.642 kilograms of heroin. The Drug Enforcement Agency intercepted Orondo upon her arrival on Ethiopian airline flight ETA 933, which originated from Thailand and made a stopover in Addis Ababa. During its preliminary investigations, Orondo revealed that she was tasked with delivering the illicit cargo hidden in a canopy by a Nigerian only identified as Alex to a consignee named Abel Soma in Monrovia. From Monrovia, Abraham Parker completes the story.
Addressing newsmen on Monday, LDEA Director General Anthony Sao disclosed that the heroin, valued at approximately $388,890 on the international market, was cleverly concealed in the frame of the canopy, making it difficult to detect during routine checks. He explained that authorities, however, noted that the outer weight of the canopy was suspicious, prompting a detailed inspection that eventually led to the discovery of the powder. The head of the Drug Enforcement Agency attributed the arrest of the heroin and other narcotics to the rigorous training and support provided to their officers by the government and partners.
Orondo arrived on Ethiopia Airline flight ETA 933 from Thailand through Addis Ababa.
Following her arrest, Orondo was granted access to legal representation and her rights were upheld as she prepares for trial in Maigibi County where the arrest was made. The authorities expressed gratitude to the media for its role in raising awareness about drug trafficking issues and reiterated their commitment to timely judiciary processes for West Africa Democracy Radio. I'm Abraham Parker in Monrovia.
Similarly, in the Gambia, the Drug Law Enforcement Agency has made a major bust of over 120,000 ecstasy pills worth over $700,000 US. The seizure, described as one of the biggest in ecstasy apprehension, was unraveled by operatives of the Drug Law Enforcement Agency of the Gambia, stationed in the Banjul International Airport. Sankule Janko tells us more in this report.
The Drug Law Enforcement agents apprehended the suspect following his arrival at the Banjul International Airport on Sunday. Usman Sediba is the spokesperson of the Drug Law Enforcement Agency of the Gambia.
The suspect, who has been identified as Sekou Krubali, traveled from Barcelona to Amsterdam, where he is said to have secured these drugs from a friend. And then from Barcelona, he traveled to Banjul on board SN Brussels airline. And upon his arrival, the operatives were able to arrest him. The drugs were concealed in his luggage, 3 big suitcases that he had.
The seizure is said to be one of the largest ever single seizure of ecstasy effected at an airport within the sub-region.
So the cumulative total quantity that was arrested with him is 128,745 pills of ecstasy. This seizure can be said to be one of the largest single seizure to be effected within the sub-region at the airport. If you look at this quantity in the history of Gambia itself, is the single biggest seizure of ecstasy that has ever been effected at the airport.
The suspect is currently in police custody, helping with the investigations. The Gambia is gradually turning into a transit and destination for illicit drugs. Within a span of 3 months, operatives stationed at the airport have seized more than 215,000 pills of ecstasy and significant quantities of cocaine, Moroccan hashish, skunk, cannabis, and other varying types of drugs. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankule Janko reporting from Banjul.
Back here in Senegal, Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko has launched Phase 2 of the drinking water supply project for rural populations. This was done on Monday at Kebema in the Logan region in the north of the country. The project is financed to a tune of $10 million US, and it will allow for the construction of several hydraulic infrastructures. More details with Mustafa Jakite and voiced by Eche Atiso.
It was in the village of Fasture in the department of Kebeme in the region of Luga that the first stone of Phase 2 of the project was laid. Financed to the tune of 64 billion CFA francs, the project plans to carry out 85 drillings, but also 89 water towers and 1,450 kilometers of networks, as well as the installation of 300 standpipes and 18,200 private connections. This will provide access to water for thousands of people. Ousmane Sonko is the Prime Minister of Senegal.
The proposed project aligns perfectly with the established framework that prioritizes equity as a fundamental principle, contributing significantly to the achievement of sustainable development goals, particularly its aspect 6 on potable water and sanitation. This national project aims in the long run to satisfy the water needs of over 2 million Senegalese citizens across the entire national territory.
One of the objectives of this project, according to the Senegalese Prime Minister, is to reduce inequalities between urban and rural areas.
Regarding the provision of quality and accessible water, there is an issue of equity because the metro areas might have access to water while urban areas struggle with adequate water supply. It is normal for urban areas to have better access, but the President of the Republic has given instructions to ensure that water is sold or provided in every part of Senegal, including rural areas.
The work on Phase 2 of this rural drinking water supply project will be completed in almost 3 years.
And that was Mustafa Jakete's report and voiced by Eche Atiso. You're still listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world. We are live on wadr.org. We're also live on Facebook at WADR English Service, as well as YouTube at WADR News. Here is a reminder of our top stories. The Nigeria Labour Congress NLC suspends the nationwide protest against the 50% hike in telecommunication tariffs. Liberian authorities arrest the Kenyan national with heroin worth nearly $400,000. Regional policy analysts express worry over the imminent shutdown of US aid by American President Donald Trump. And Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko launches Phase 2 of the drinking water supply project for rural populations. We also have the press interview, the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's go over to Ghana now, as the World Bank has received an additional $117 million grant from the Global Partnership for Education (GPE) to expand the Ghana Learning and Accountability Outcomes Project (GALOP) to all public, primary and kindergarten schools nationwide. This funding aims to enhance pupils' preparedness and develop critical skills needed to strengthen basic education in the country. Announcing this, the World Bank Country Director, Dr. Robert Telasio, said the additional grant is as a result of the project's success. Initially, GALOP targeted 10,000 lower-performing primary and kindergarten schools in Ghana. GALOP, a $338.83 million project, aims to improve the quality of education in low-performing basic schools while strengthening equity and accountability in Ghana's educational sector. Let's turn attention to Cote d'Ivoire at the moment, because finally, Cote d'Ivoire's Minister of State and spokesperson for the ruling for the RHDP has reacted to the recent statement by former Ivorian President Laurent Gbagbo denouncing the country's indebtedness. According to the former Ivorian head of state, this debt, which he described as colossal, increased from 6,000 billion CFA francs in 2011 at the end of serious post-election crisis in Cote d'Ivoire and reached 228,944.7 billion CFA francs in 2024. These were statements the government spokesperson denied during the inauguration of the Yamoussoukro of the 2025 Iwan Ado movement. Here's Abinadei's report from Abidjan and voiced by Abdoulaye Hassan.
For the Minister of State and spokesperson for the ruling RHDP party, Kobenan Kwasi Adjumani, the management of public debt under the Ouattara government is transparent and rigorous.
I heard someone say that President Ouattara has contracted Odigba debt. I know that talking about Odigba debts is meant to entertain the audience. But when discussing such important matters, one must be serious. He forgets to mention that our country manages its debt well. He also forgets to mention that alongside the so-called Odigba debts, there are double the efforts.
Kobenan Kwasi Adjumani also points out that public investments have enabled Cote d'Ivoire to maintain robust economic growth despite global challenges. He therefore calls for a more constructive political debate, far from provocations and degenerating terms. As a reminder, during his message to the nation on the occasion of the New Year, President Alassane Ouattara indicated that Côte d'Ivoire's debt remains moderate, with a debt stock set at 56% of GDP against a community threshold of 70% in the West African Economic and Monetary Union UEMOA zone.
Abinade sent in the report and voiced by Abdullah Hassan.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's join Abraham Parker from Monrovia for the press review.
Indeed, on today's edition, Press Review, we have 3 local dailies. Let's take a look at the front page Africa newspaper. Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency arrests Kenyan woman at RIA with 388,000 worth of heroin. Noka Boss, that is the National Oil Company of Liberia, denies driving US 75,000 car. Panic in Liberia as Trump administration threatens USA shutdown days after suspension of life-saving activities. The back page of the front page Africa newspaper. Liberty Party, one of the main opposition political parties in Liberia, to hold National Convention Friday. Boakai appoints a veteran Liberian journalist as magistrate. The rest of the stories on the back page of the front page newspaper are us posts. Next up will be the Liberian investigator. Boaka's government faces accusations of selective justice. Liberia gears up for 68th Armed Forces Day celebration. Take a look at the back page of the Liberian investigator. Internal turmoil grasps National Teacher Association of Liberia as members demand full-scale audit. Indeed, in photo is the president of the National Teachers Association of Liberia. The rest of the stories on the back page of the Liberian investigator are all commercials. Let's take a look at the Hot Pepper newspaper, which is our last stop. Treat Liberia as a special case. Councillor Tiawan Gonglo appeals to President Trump over a halt and deportation. And of course, Tiawan Gonglo is considered in Liberia's politics as the broom man. For protecting human rights justice in Liberia, Siaden Ayo, Chief Justice of Liberia, receives international award. The back page of the Hot Pepper newspaper. Liberian journalist takes LRA's Makwa Koto, Koli Zizi, and others to task for threats against his life. Well, thanks for joining us. It's back to you.
Abraham Parker from Monrovia with a press review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is a guest.
In our guest interview this afternoon, policy analyst Professor Gogui Deng speaks about the impact of the shutdown of US aid to Africa as African countries remain beneficiaries of the support that the institution has been providing since its inception in November 1961. However, with President Donald Trump's new directive on making the U.S. aid close its doors to Africa, will this be the time for Africans to sustainably develop homegrown policies to the continent's growth? He provides analysis.
No surprise. This is really in accordance with his campaign and premises. He's simply implementing what he promised during his campaign. So there is no surprise. Maybe the problem is that the decision or the influence has come from somebody from Africa, Elon Musk, being from South Africa. But in any case, he's no longer concerned about what is going on in Africa. So this is something we can consider to be at the same time negative and positive. It is negative because countries count on this to support their education, healthcare, development programs. And so far, the USAID projects have really been positive. This is something we really have got to acknowledge.
Would you bring to perspective, say, countries of West Africa that have benefited and are still benefiting from USAID?
Now, all the countries, USAID programs are present in almost the countries in Africa. You cannot really cite a country in Africa where the USAID programs are present, because this is part of the American international policy. This is diplomacy. Maybe this is something Trump doesn't take into account. He believes that he's simply helping. He's simply giving away American money to other countries. But this money also is diplomatic, plays a diplomatic role. Because being present in Senegal, being present in Guinea, being present in other countries in Africa helps also America be more respected and be more present.
Do you think President Trump's decision, backed or supported by Elon Musk, is more of him fulfilling his campaign promise or promises to his supporters and Americans, rather than being logical and see in depth the consequences of this and influence America had through the USAID by reaching out to countries with support and, of course, gaining control, political control?
I believe that Trump doesn't know much about politics. He doesn't know much about geopolitics. Maybe he has advisors, but he doesn't really know geopolitics very much. What is important for him is America. This is the reason why his slogan was, "We have got to make America great again." That's to say, we have got to focus on America. And I believe that this may be something positive, but I see that can be also something negative. Because if you stop the USAID programs in Africa, that will have consequences on the presence of America in Africa, on the influence of America in Africa. And I believe that Trump is in a position to understand all this, because it's not about the economy only, but it's about diplomacy, it's about politics.
That was policy analyst Professor Gogui Deng speaking on the impact the imminent shutdown of US aid could have on Africa. And we can join Sankuli Janko for details in the world of sports.
Hello there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at this transfer deadline day involving African footballers. Championship side Blackburn Rovers have secured the signing of Nigeria forward Emmanuel Dennis on loan from Nottingham Forest as the club pushes for promotion, according to Brilla Sports. Dennis, 27, becomes the fourth Super Eagles player to wear Blackburn's colours, following the footsteps of Yakubu, Dixon Etuhu and Hope Akpom. The championship side confirmed Dennis' arrival in an official statement on their website. Elsewhere, championship side Middlesbrough have signed Nigerian striker Kelechi Iheanacho. The English championship side Middlesbrough had been busy all day after signing Samuel Lynn Jr. Michael Carrick's side moved for Kelechi Iheanacho. The striker joins on a loan deal until the end of the season from Spanish side Sevilla. Iheanacho only joined Sevilla last summer after letting his contract with Leicester run, according to Sports Village. And French side Lille have completed the signing of striker and Ghanaian hopeful Chuba Akpom from Ajax Amsterdam on a loan deal with an option to buy until the end of the 2024-25 season. The 28-year forward underwent his medical on Saturday and was in attendance as Lille secured a dominant 4-1 league win victory over Saint Etienne, according to media reports. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we have come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Umu Danyogo for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook at WADR English Service. I am Christopher Ticho. Good afternoon and enjoy the rest of our broadcast.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via